didn't think that we could pull him out of wrestling because this is what he'd worked for so hard, and we thought that he could manage it. And it became harder and harder for him to manage his weight. He began putting on several pounds in a day. The boys would normally lose 3 or 4 pounds in a practice from sweat. Matthew would gain weight. Matthew had a history of reflux disease as a child, so it wasn't uncommon for him to have vomiting episodes, especially after certain foods. When his coach called and said, we're having problems because Matthew's puking a lot at school, I said, well, that's not that unusual for Matt. It really wasn't. And I told him about the reflux disease, and I thought, this is nothing. And Matthew said it was nothing. But then it became much more involved. And Matthew finally began to admit that he was having trouble. He was eating a lot or drinking a lot and purging. We didn't know quite what to do, honestly.
My freshman year, I cut from 128 to 106. So I was cutting 22 in the beginning. I first found myself binge eating. If I look back, I can find the roots of it in my 8th grade year, when I really started cutting weight, and it didn't really affect me until my freshman year in the state finals.
At the time, Matthew was one of the top-rated kids in his weight class in the state as a freshman, and he was definitely expected to place in the state tournament and place high.
He did well, made the third day, made the finals, and he weighed in on that third day. And what I remember most about that state tournament was going home from weigh-ins. Him and I stopped for breakfast, and I told him to eat half of what he had ordered, and he wanted to have soup later for lunch. And I said, fine, so we got that to go. And then when we got back to the hotel, I went to the bathroom, and he ate the rest of his breakfast and all of the soup for the lunch. And, I was a little frustrated that he had eaten all that. It was too much too soon. And so then we went out for lunch, and I told Matthew to eat half of his lunch, and he had eaten it all.
All of that plus water combined to make 22 pounds, which slowed me down.
He needs to dig that left foot in and get the legs in so he can get 2.
And there it is. So the first 2 points go to Chris Williams.
And when he got out there, he wrestled a kid that he had beaten at sectionals, and he could not move the long wrestle. He ended up losing to the kid by a point.
Looking for a crank. He's got what he wants in there. I don't know if he'll be able to finish it.
Doesn't look like he will. 3, 2, 1, and Chris Williams of Thornton is your state champion by a score of 4-3.
And when he walked off of the mat, we were having a lot of problems that year. In fact, my father, who was very close to Matthew and used to travel with him for a lot of his tournaments, went into the hospital the day after Christmas that year, and he never recovered. I mean, he died 2 days after the state tournament, watching Matthew on a tablet in the hospital.
When my grandpa died, I felt like of all the people I'd let down, I'd let him down the most, because, he'd always been there for me. I mean, when I wrestled on the world team in Hungary, he was the only one who came out and saw me. And, before he passed, I told him I was going to win a state championship for him. And I didn't that year, and I felt really disappointed. And I felt like I let him down. It reached a fever pitch in my sophomore year when it was really bad.
He had a device that was a spoon attached to a bunch of sticks that was about 2 feet long that he would jam down his throat to make himself vomit.
I was doing things that I don't even associate with being human. I was digging food out of trash cans. I was looking for anywhere I could find food. And then, in order to make weight, I was forcibly making myself vomit. I spent 2 months in the hospital working through these problems, and many more months of therapy to sort of make up for time lost, because I had been ignoring so many parts of my life while I was wrestling.
We told him, walk away, be healthy. We don't care. You don't have to do this. But it was not what he wanted to do.
People telling me that I would never wrestle again and that the dream was over. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let that happen to me, you know? Wrestling in many ways is my life. I'm not just going to let that slip away from me.
He decided he needed to wrestle. He decided he needed to wrestle at a level that is really high. He made those choices.
The ultimatum was essentially that if I ever got as bad as I was sophomore year with my eating, that I was going to have to be scrapped from the team.
So I think there was a lot of fear, we quickly saw that things were going well for him. And we constantly reported back to each other, how are you doing, Matthew? I am fine. Are you really fine? Yes, I am really fine. You know, when he started wrestling his junior year, there was a joy in the way that he did everything. He laughed. He joked around with kids on the team that he hadn't talked to almost the year before.
Sophomore year was he was lost, you know. He was weak, and he didn't understand what he was doing, what he was getting himself into, and he felt powerless to save himself. Senior year, I felt like I could take the power back, and I did.
He's gotten his hand raised a lot, and it's always exciting to have that happen. But I think when he got on the podium as a junior and took third, and he smiled, then I knew like we were out of the woods for real.
Matthew's senior year, he returned as the number 1 rated kid in the state. He was still dealing with struggles as he went on, and still had difficulties dealing with his emotions, but he's gotten better. And as he went through, he was managing his schoolwork a little bit better, he was managing wrestling a little bit better, his training a little bit better, and he went through the state series, and he got to the state finals and finally won the match he wanted to win.
I felt like I had come full circle, because my freshman year I was also in the state finals, but that time I wasn't emotionally ready, and I let the eating disorder take it away from me then too, by overeating and gaining 22 pounds before the state finals. And the learned me in my senior year was ready for it, and he thrived in that state finals match. He wasn't gonna let anything stand in his way, and I do feel like it. I feel like I fulfilled all of my promises. I promised my grandfather I'd win it. I promised myself and my family I was going to do it, and I followed through on that.